Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business. I just want to give a shout out to Rounded, our sponsor, because I know for me, my quarterly BAS used to be so stressful. But I love Rounded because everything is there and so tidy, Rach.
I know, no more shoe boxes of receipts. I also really love that my accountant can log into the program remotely and help me with lodgement. Just do it without me needing to even worry about it.
That's what we love.
But best of all, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can save 20% on any annual Rounded plan. Even if you've got the Rounded discount last year, you can get it this year as well.
Awesome. The show notes always have the details.
Yeah. Lynne, have you ever thought of starting your own agency?
Well, I guess the thought has crossed my mind here and there, actually, but then I think I prefer the company of one, me. So much less stress.
Yes. Well, Rachel's List, that's not really an agency, but it's definitely not something I've thought about with my writing work, although a couple of friends have suggested that I start one with them. And I'm like, I just don't need one more thing on my plate. But this week we have a guest who has done exactly that. Vanessa Keys has started her own agency and she's here to talk about it with us.
Yeah, it's so exciting because we both know Vanessa from her freelancing and magazine days. We were saying off air that both of us, we've all commissioned each other at various points, which is lovely.
But do you want to...
circular.
Yes.
Tell our listeners a little bit about Vanessa so we can get her into the hot seat.
Okay. So Vanessa Keys started her content career 18 years ago in Sydney, working as a journalist for newspapers and magazines, including stints as the features writer for Australian Home Beautiful magazine and the arts writer at the Daily Telegraph. And in 2012, she moved to London and carved a path as a content strategist and copywriter at some of London's biggest agencies, working with clients like Google, Facebook, Siemens, Philips, Vue Entertainment, Barclays, Nando's, Arup, Dulux, Bayer, and many others. In 2017, Vanessa and her business partner Liz started their own agency called Slice, and they ran it in London as a side hustle for the first year before moving it back to their hometown of Adelaide in late 2018. Slice is a content-first marketing agency, I think we're going to talk about that takes a considered approach to content creation. In her role as content and strategy director, Vanessa channels her love for good, honest, and compelling storytelling into helping brands and businesses unearth their stories and working with them to create content that achieves business objectives, stands on its own as good journalism, and responds to the needs of the real humans who'll be using the products and services. Welcome, Vanessa. That was a bio and an exciting one.
Hello. Thank you both so much for having me. I'm really thrilled to be here.
Oh, it's great
to have you.
We usually ask our guests about their career, and I know a little bit about yours because you started on magazines with my sister. Is that right? How did that all come about?
So I grew up in Adelaide and I dreamed of working on magazines. I just wanted to be a magazine journalist so bad. So when I was in my second year of uni, I lined up 4 weeks of work experience at 4 different magazines.
Wow.
In Sydney. So I traveled to Sydney and stayed in Sydney for 4 weeks. And one of those work experience stints was at Home Beautiful magazine. And the editor at the time, Lynne, that's your sister, Wendy Moore. And I had such a great time doing a work experience. But, my 4 weeks ended. I came back to Adelaide. I ended up leaving uni early to take a job at the Adelaide Fringe in kind of an entry-level media position. And pretty much as soon as that had finished, I kind of was wondering what was it I was going to do. And I got a call from Home Beautiful. So this is about 9 months after I initially had done my work experience. And they called me and said that there was the editorial coordinator job that was open and ready for someone to kind of step in and take it over. And that's kind of your entry-level job in magazines. And so I moved to Sydney about, 2 weeks later.
Wow.
How amazing.
Gosh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We've all been in that editorial coordinator role. And you're sort of like desperate, aren't you, to, start writing, and you really just want someone to take pity on you and throw something at you to do.
You did lots of newsy pieces and stuff, I remember.
And yeah, the first kind of few months, you're definitely just, cleaning out. At that point, they were still using like film. They were still shooting on film. So I was kind of organizing a lot of film, cleaning out the stationery cupboard, cleaning out all kinds of different nooks and crannies in the office. And then, somebody throws you like, can you please write about the latest pears that are in season for the kitchen news page? And I spend weeks crafting 75 words about pears. Just feel so proud when you put a byline in the magazine. But no, I worked at Home Beautiful for 4 years and eventually left kind of as a senior features writer. And then I went to the Telegraph for a year and worked as the kind of arts writer / features writer. And I was there for about a year before I got kind of bit by the bug and moved overseas.
How exciting, because we know that you worked overseas in London and you moved into copywriting. Tell us about that and how you sort of learnt your craft in copywriting.
Oh, very much on the job. So I moved to London in 2012 and, I moved to work as a journalist. I wanted to work. I loved Elle, the UK version of Elle. It was, a big time for magazines, but everything was moving online. Jobs were changing in terms of who they were hiring. And I didn't have huge amounts of online experience. I couldn't believe how low the salaries were when I moved to London. The journalist salaries were barely livable. You really had to be living at home or have like lots of family money. It's very much about who you knew. So I got a job working at a news magazine online for like I think I got paid like £50 a day, but only afford to catch the tube to work and not home from work. But about 9 months after kind of moving to London, I got a job at an agency and didn't really know kind of how an agency worked or what I was going to do, but they hired me as a content editor and I was working on the Dulux account, which was a good match for me because I obviously had experience working for Home Beautiful. And I just, really, really loved agency land. I loved the challenges. I loved the intersection between the commercial side of things in terms of helping a business or a brand, understand their audience better and grow their audience. I loved at that time, it was very a big focus on UX, so the user experience, and improving the way in which somebody kind of moves through your customer decision journey, from awareness to consideration to the purchase cycle. So I really loved kind of getting into all of that. I ended up doing a UX course and kind of really got my nerd on.
Oh, that's so
cool.
nice.
Yeah.
You worked on some big accounts, I presume, in those agencies. What sort of things did you see in those large agencies and how they deliver content? Was there a bit of a change, though, going from like straight advertising into sort of content management and content creation?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So when I moved to London, so it was kind of 2012, and I was working in an agency in about 2013, it was that period of time marked a really big change for brands and how they communicated with their audience. So for years, they'd been used to talking mainly about themselves via like passive marketing and advertising channels. So print, TV, radio, billboard advertising. And, we as the consumers had no choice but to listen. And then social media, blogging all comes along and brands suddenly realize they can no longer keep their audience engaged by just talking about themselves. Audiences want that two-way dialogue. They want to be challenged. They wanted to understand what a brand stands for. And suddenly we become a lot more careful about where we spend our money. We want to feel like we're making really good decisions with our purchasing power. And brands really need to get a stand for something. So all the brands that I was working on in London were fairly kind of big global brands, they're just suddenly throwing all their money into content. And I think this is when that phrase, content is king, kind of started. So over the next probably 4 to 5 years working in London, I watched as brands, demanded more and more and more content, often without a second thought to the audience, to the purpose, to like the end goal of the content. I mean, we were producing upwards of, 20, 35 articles a month for the Dulux website, all about decorating. And there was just very little thought went into this content in terms of, why are we doing this and how are we measuring this content? We didn't obviously have as robust analytics tools as we do now. Google Analytics was in its infancy. And so there's just a lot of money and time and resources spent on just creating volumes and volumes of content. I watched as large agencies, I think, turned a bit of a blind eye to this and, charging clients pretty exorbitant fees for content that, I felt like would never have any sort of measurable impact. So
they just knew that content was big and they had to have it. They didn't
It
know
was kind of
why
like,
or how
it
to
sounds
do
like
it.
it was like the age of content before content strategy, in a sense.
it really was. And I mean, I definitely came of age in the commercial content world when content strategy was, in its infancy and becoming a thing. I learned from some great teachers. I had some amazing, content strategists in London. I didn't know what a content strategist was, and I ended up being one a few years later.
Mm-hmm.
In its content strategy sounds so complicated, but at its heart, it's simply understanding like how to get the right content to the right people at the right time.
Yeah, that plan. Yeah.
As simple as it is, understanding your audience, understanding what goals a business needs to achieve, and then creating content that hits that sweet spot between giving good content that's going to meet user needs, but is also going to help the business achieve its goals. So, yeah, it was a very interesting time to be working in London in kind of agency land.
Wow. And so how did you then go from agency, working in an agency to starting your own agency, Slice? Cute name, by the way.
Thanks. So I started Slice with my friend and business partner, Liz. And Liz and I met in Adelaide in our kind of late teens. And we both ended up moving to London at the same time, in the same week, essentially. So she was living in Adelaide, I was in Sydney, and we both, ended up moving to London. And Liz's background is in digital marketing, account management, kind of content production. And so we actually ended up working together at an agency, and she was my account manager, very much kind of kept me in line. And I was kind of working on the more kind of creative side of things. And after we both left that workplace, Liz went to work at a more specialized kind of content marketing agency, running large content production projects. And I started consulting, so going into agencies as a kind of a consultant / freelancer as a content strategist. So I was exposed to so many different styles of agencies, ways of working, ways of pitching, ways of running teams, exposed to so many clients. And some of my contracts would be for, 3 or 4 weeks. I just needed somebody to come in and help them win a pitch or help write a deck or do a little bit of audience research. And other contracts, I worked for, 6 months or even a year. So I got so much experience, and it really made me hungry to see if I, or, if Liz and I could kind of take what we'd learned and observed and do it our own way.
Yeah. And so when did you guys decide, right, we're going to go out together and do this? And you did it in London. You started in London. How did that all evolve?
So we started it as a side hustle. I was still freelancing, so I devoted a couple of days to the business, and Liz dropped down from 5 days a week to 4 days a week. And we just kind of put, kind of what we had into it. We had a single client at the time, which was a UK client. It was a friend that we'd worked with at the agency. We'd worked back together, and she was leaving agency land to take over her family's business. And so we worked on that account, and we did kind of a full service. We did a kind of marketing plan. We launched a couple of new websites for her, did a suite of kind of videos, and really kind of cut our teeth that way. We had a different name at that point. We called the agency Matter in London. We couldn't end up copywriting it. We didn't have business cards. We didn't have any kind of fancy branding. We just thought, look, let's do what we can for a year, work on this account, see if this is something. And after a year doing this kind of at the end of our time in London, we both decided after 7 years to, give it a go and bring it back to Adelaide. We still have that client today. So that have that UK client today, which is brilliant. But starting a business, we started it from scratch essentially in Adelaide. We had to find a new name, get branding. We had a little bit of money, which we kind of put into branding the agency. We got some desks in kind of a sublet situation, so we weren't just sitting on our couches all day, so to feel a little bit more professional. I remember very early on opening up a Word document and writing how to get clients on top of it. I just looking at this blank screen and not knowing what to do. I mean, we didn't know how to start an agency. And things moved pretty slowly at first. We both had to find income streams initially. Liz went and did a couple of contract digital marketing jobs, and I went back into freelancing. I did a lot of freelance writing for Home Beautiful, and slowly, I think we replied to a call out in a Facebook group about digital marketing in Adelaide and met a client through there. We met a couple of clients through previous connections that we'd had when we both worked in Adelaide, and yeah, it just
started from there.
Grew from there.
Because do you think, was Adelaide ready for sort of content marketing? Because I remember as when I was a magazine editor presenting to agencies in Adelaide, and they were an interesting mix of sort of fairly small sort of agencies. What's it like now?
It's still the same. Australia, I think, is a good couple of years behind the UK, and I think Adelaide is probably a couple of years behind maybe some of the eastern states. There are a lot of digital and design agencies here.
Yeah.
There are no kind of specialized content agencies, specialized content strategy, so to speak. There are, a lot of marketing agencies, social media agencies. Was Adelaide ready? I mean, we definitely reframed how we talked about ourselves. We had to not...
I guess maybe you just had to sort of do a lot of education about what a content agency was, because people were probably doing it but not labeling it the same way everything in London would have been all about, content being king. Yeah.
Just a very different way of working. I mean, when I was in the UK, Dulux, for example, had a media agency, a design agency, a web dev agency, a social agency. So, you would have 5 or 6 agencies, and it's very much, specialized, you specialize in one thing. Whereas in NSA, particularly when we moved back 5 years ago, it was very much, full service. It was who can do the most amount of work or have the most amount of specialisms or services under one roof. And we were very kind of careful to make sure that we weren't doing anything that we didn't think we were very good at doing. So he said from the outset, we weren't going to do any PR. He said we weren't going to do any websites, and we ended up building a lot of websites. We don't do that many anymore, but we definitely kind of had dabbled in them.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to understand where your strengths are and make sure that you're playing to those rather than trying to be everything to everyone.
So how big is Slice now? I'd love to know where the name came from as well.
So when we had to give up Matter, RIP, that was a sad day. There was another agency in Brisbane who did SEO who were called Matter, and we thought better just to let it go rather than kind of end up in we had a really great lawyer who helped us kind of navigate that area. Slice, I don't know. I think we just wrote down a whole bunch of words that we liked kind of the mouth feel of, and slice one of them. And we also thought that sometimes you can spend a lot of time thinking about what you want to call something, and at the end of the day, you just make the decision to call it something, and then everyone just calls it that, and no one really thinks about it anymore.
Yeah. It's a bit like Rachel's List, how it's just that was what everyone called it, so that became the name, the brand, and everything. It's funny.
But we definitely, our tagline is like content with cut through.
Yeah, that's great. So how big are you guys now? Do you have lots of staff, or do you commission out lots of stuff to freelancers?
So we started just the 2 of us, and we ran the agency really as a consultancy for the first couple of years, primarily taking on, I guess, more like strategic planning projects, really doing all that kind of discovery, foundational work to empower brands and businesses to create their own content in-house. And more the clients we were working with said, "Oh, can't you just do it for me?" So we started to grow the team about 3 years ago, and there's 9 of us now. So including Liz and I, we're a team of 9.
Yeah, wow. That is fast.
That is amazing. So you say on your little blurb and everything that you're a content first marketing agency. What does that mean? Tell us what that means for you.
So this is one of the areas that we really like to educate people in SA. So there's, I think, about how different people jump, I think, into the design of things, into how things should look. We're really big advocates for approaching your brand storytelling like journalists. So thinking about the hook, thinking about the story, thinking about the human interest angle, thinking about what content do you need to create to really engage, to cut through with your audience. and then thinking about the design or the experience that's needed to bring that content to life. We have been in many situations where brands have built websites, really flashy, beautiful websites, and they bring them to us because they need copywriting. And we get given this website, and there are, 4 little blocks on the homepage with Lorem Ipsum written in it. And it's really sad, because I just think I can't tell your brand story, or I can't communicate your values, or tell your audience what it is they need to know about your brand in 200 words in these teeny boxes on your homepage. So it makes much, much, much more sense. It saves so much time and money if you think about the content, if you spend a good amount of time creating and crafting your story, and then working out how to best to bring it to life. So that's what we mean by content first.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So you've just mentioned like you're very big on storytelling and bringing those, the journalism side of things into the agency. So tell us how you approach that and how you guys are different to perhaps other agencies out there.
It's a very good question, something I am trying to articulate every single day.
Yeah.
I think it comes from my journalism background, and we certainly try and hire people who are curious. We run what we call brand immersion workshops with every client that comes into the agency, and that is it's 2 or 3 hours where we sit down and ask our clients everything there is to know about the business. How did you start it? How did you meet your business partner? What did you do in school? What were you like as a kid? What are your goals, aspirations? What's your business vision in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, to really understand the motivation behind the business, the problems that they were trying to solve. Quite often the problems that clients come to us with aren't actually the problems that they need help solving. The problems are baked, far deeper into the business. And I love being able to use my journalism background to work as a bit of an investigative journalist in those first few stages of bringing a client into the agency, to understand like what are the problems that you actually need help with, because they're pretty much always different to what they come to us with.
Yeah, they probably come with simplistic things like we need to increase sales, rather than why are people not buying what we want or what we sell or something.
Or, why are we not getting enough, engagement or reach on social media? And quite often the answer is actually to grow your business, that particular social channel isn't the right channel for you. You should be focusing on email marketing, or you should be focusing on, more B2B channel like LinkedIn. Or, we get a lot of businesses who have really, really great SEO at the very beginning when they launch their website. So that's search engine optimization. So they're getting quite a lot of traffic come through from Google, and that starts to kind of fade away over time. And we do a bit of a website audit, and it just turns out their website looks really flashy from the front, but actually hasn't been built very well. And Google doesn't understand the website. It can't read it properly. It hasn't been built properly in the back end to allow the Google bots to be able to read it quickly. And therefore Google tends to lose interest in it. And, when people go to a website and aren't spending enough time on it, that's a really good indication to Google that the site isn't valuable and isn't useful to people. So it'll start to drop down in those rankings in search. Yeah, I love the investigative side of my job, asking questions and just meeting and getting to know so many interesting people. We work with a lot of small to medium business owners, and I see myself in a lot of them. They often, put everything into their business. They work long evenings, weekends. They just, love their business so much. And I love my business so much. And so I understand where they're coming from a lot of the time when they say, I really want this to succeed, or I wish I had more time to work on the business rather than in the business, because they're all the same feelings that I have as a business owner as well.
How do you bring all your nerdy UX stuff in, or do you still, focus on that, when you're onboarding and that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that I really love to do is something called IA, which is information architecture. So that's how a website is kind of organized, structured, and built. So if you think about it like the blueprint of a house, IA is how all the content on your site is organized. So what your kind of navigation looks like, what your URL structure looks like, your sitemap, how everything, the relationship between pages. And then to get even nerdier, some of the projects that I work on include doing taxonomy, which is how you name certain things. So how you tag content and the relationship between those tags and categories. And I love it. I love nerding out on that stuff. It's really similar to getting like pulling everything out of a really messy kitchen cabinet or a pantry, and then kind of putting everything back, and you just feel like you've interviewed all the members of the household, you've understood the conditions of of which the pantry is in.
You've got the right Tupperware containers and they're all labelled.
Yeah, you've done an audit, you understand how people operate in the house, and you feel like you've got all the information at hand, and then you can go back in and make it much easier for the occupants to use.
It's a great analogy. I love it.
Now we're hearing it's pretty slow out there for freelancers right now. It's up and down. Like Rach and I have been quite busy, but I guess we've been going around. Do you find the agency's gone through some slow patches? And if so, how do you get things moving again?
That's a good question as well. I've definitely gone through slow patches. The pandemic was a really tricky time. We had 3 or 4 clients call and say they were cancelling work a few days after the lockdown happened. Kind of just makes you feel really sick in your stomach. And you think, oh, is this the end? We've definitely gone through slow times, and it can be really easy to fall into the patterns of what are we going to do, or we have to go out there and find more work. But we have been very lucky that we haven't ever had serious times of downturn. I don't think it's quite out there. I think people are spending their money a little bit more carefully. We are seeing, I think this time of year is very interesting as well. We're obviously, a week out from the end of the financial year. And so people are about to get new budgets in place. We tend to kind of get a frenzy of new business inquiries around that kind of April mark, when everyone's doing their budgets for the new year and trying to work out how much things are going to cost or how much money they need to ask for. I don't know. I feel like whenever things are a little bit slow, I just try and take advantage of that and tell myself that we've never, been in trouble before, and it's very unlikely that we're going to go out of business. So you have to really kind of talk yourself into positivity.
Yeah. Well, you've had some big client wins recently. How much work goes into securing those really big clients? Is that you doing that, or you and Liz?
Yeah, it's very much a team effort. So we won a 2-year retainer with Bridgestone Australia at the end of last year. So we're looking after their social media and engagement agency across Australia for both the Bridgestone brand and also the Bridgestone Select Tire and Auto stores. So a very large account, looking after that nationally. That was quite a big pitching effort from the whole Slice team in terms of coming up with concepts and ideas and putting together creative executions to win that business. Typically, the proposals we put forward to clients are mainly around how we're going to approach the work, showing that we've listened and we're responding to the brief they gave us, and showing how we'll approach the work and kind of the investment that they'll need to put into the work moving forward. We don't typically get asked to do, very large kind of creative, executions or pitches. We have done quite a few, RFPs and RFQs in our time, which is when you have to do quite large 100-page proposals and respond to all kinds of criteria. And they obviously take up a lot of time. But I think every time I do a new business pitch or a proposal, I feel like I'm getting closer to understanding and articulating, the heart of the business. It's an ever-growing, ever-evolving thing. I feel like I'm constantly trying to redefine or kind of understand how best to talk about the business and sell it into people. So I really relish, every opportunity I get, even if there's a lot of work to do those kind of decks, pitch decks.
It's a learning curve, really.
It is. But I really do feel like every time I do one, I scratch off a little bit more about who the business is and what it is and where we want to take it in the future.
Yeah. It must be hard also, I know, from the sort of days of advertising pitches, to do all that work and sometimes not win the account, or, and it must be really hard and expensive.
It is. I think so the way new business works at Slice is that Liz and I both meet with pretty much everyone that makes an inquiry in the business, and then I will take that brief and often send them some questions and ask them, some, for more details, and then I'll come back with a proposal. And quite often they'll want that rescoped depending on the budgets that I've given them or new information that they've received. It is a time-consuming process. A few years ago, we were in talks to do a little bit of work with an architecture agency, and they talked us through their new biz, pitching process. And they spend upwards of weeks and weeks and months doing new business pitches and proposals. And they showed me they have to basically come with these, it was a 100-page bound book with, beautiful illustrations and renders, and so much work goes into these. And I always think of that when I'm putting together my, 15-page proposal on Google Slides. And I think at least I don't have to do, fully fleshed out renders and
yes,
landscaping proposals. But each of those pitches is worth, millions of dollars to them. So for them, it does make sense to, if they win, say, one in every 5 or 6, it does make sense to put that much time and energy into them.
Gosh, it's such a different way of getting business when you think about it. And, as freelancers, we think about all the different ways that we pick up clients, through marketing or, making sure your site is optimized really well and all of that sort of stuff. But when it comes to an agency, I mean, how do you find clients? Do you just hear about a chance to tender for Bridgestone, or how does it work? How do you pick them up?
So Bridgestone actually approached us. We have been really fortunate. We have never done any traditional marketing or advertising. We have a website, which we kind of redid a few years ago, and now I desperately want to redo it again. I think that's every business owner wants to do that website.
It definitely is.
Yes.
I'm actually in the process of redoing it at the moment, which I'm really excited about. We do a little bit of social media, which is such a shame because we do social media so well for our clients. It's my hope in the future to be able to grow the team enough so that we can have someone almost dedicated in-house to do marketing for Slice. We used to send out a newsletter every Friday called Friday 14, which was a bit of a summation of that week's pop culture news, and a couple of clients came in that way. But I'd say clients come in 3 ways. So one is through our website. They fill out an inquiry form, and then we have a conversation with them. They come through word of mouth. So, a friend of mine is your client, and, I've had a great experience. I'd love to talk to you. And in that case, they're usually not talking to other agencies. They've had that word of mouth recommendation, and they're pretty locked in. And then we also have inquiries come through connections. So whether that's connections through previous lives we've had in different careers. We have a commission scheme for our employees. So they get 10% commission on new business that they bring into Slice once that kind of first scope of work is signed off. And it's really the website inquiries that are usually they've gone to 3 or 4 different agencies to kind of put a brief out, and then we meet with them and they've put together a proposal. And I'd say usually it comes down to price at that point, or, the way in which you interpret the brief and you put your approach and proposal together.
Yeah.
Well, we also try and ask all our guests about their tech tips, because then I assume that in the agency you use a lot of tech. You'd have to communicate if there's 7 of you and with your clients. What are your favourite things?
So we use Slack. I'm sure Slack isn't a particularly out there tech tip, but I love Slack. It just means we reduce the amount of email that we send to each other, and we actually have a lot of our clients on Slack, and
cool.
It really makes for much more casual, interesting relationships. We send them, cool things that we find online. You don't have to be as formal. You can add emojis. It's a nice way to, if people are kind of unwell, it's a nice way to kind of check in and ask how you're feeling. It doesn't feel as formal as email or like you're bothering them. In terms of personal tech stuff, I love, there's a kind of a widget in my Chrome called Pocket. I don't know if you guys use Pocket.
Yeah, I know.
I've heard about it. Yeah, I think one of our guests mentioned that. I can't remember who, but yes.
It's a way of saving just cool stuff you find online. So I save websites that I like onto Pocket, and then I have a nice little tagging system so I can go back and search for websites that I've tagged with content strategy or this and that. On my Google Chrome, I've got quite a few kind of fun little widgets. So I have a widget that shows me kind of the back end of a website, like how the website's been structured and its SEO rating.
Ooh, what's that?
It's called SEO Meta in one click. I can share this with you, and then you can share it with your listeners.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes for sure.
Yeah.
I've got another kind of fun widget called Colorzilla, and you can click on that, and then it's a kind of a dropper, and you can then get the hex code of any website, so you can see what kind of colors they're using.
Yeah.
But another fun widget where you can see the CMS that a website's been built on as well. So a lot of widgets in my Chrome. I'm a big fan of those.
Oh, that's interesting.
Cool.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, we'd love your words of advice for freelancers who might be stuck in a slow season right now.
A word of advice for freelancers, I think, have a little bit of fun with video content. So what I'm looking for right now in terms of, particularly when I hire, content creators, is people who, you don't have to be, a social media star, but you're not afraid to get in front of the camera and have a little bit of fun with some of the, the content platforms on offer now. So have a little bit of fun with TikTok, with Instagram. I think the best thing about these platforms right now is that audiences are really craving like super lo-fi, very down to earth, very raw content. So I would say if you're having a bit of a slow patch writing wise, get the camera on and record some videos, have a little bit of a go doing some editing yourself in some of these platforms, have a little bit of a go doing some voiceovers, kind of explore that video side, because it's definitely not going away.
That's great advice. I love the B-roll video as well. When you don't want your face on the video, but you could just do yourself walking down a beach and then have an overlay of, that's my favorite thing at the moment.
Or having a camera on a tripod and just having, your fingers typing away on a laptop. And then you have, if you're doing a marketing video, say, you could have like on the screen as your fingers are typing, just a bit of, ASMR content. You could have 5 tips for freelancers or something if that's business that you're marketing. So really interesting ways to do content these days that it don't involve, I think, a lot of time or money or huge amounts of talent. I think it's just fun to get in there and have a go.
So
absolutely. Wow. Thanks for those tips.
Such great advice, Vanessa. It's so lovely to connect, and thank you so much for coming on. Tell us where our listeners can find out more about you and Slice.
So you can find out more about Slice at slice.agency. That's the URL. There's no .com, no .au. And we are on Instagram as well at slice.agency. We're also on LinkedIn, and you can find me on Instagram at Vanessa Keys.
Fantastic.
Lovely. We'll put all those links in the show notes.
We will, and we'll add in some of the little tools that you mentioned because they sound amazing, especially the Colorzilla. I'm constantly uploading things to Color Picker, and it's just like 4 or 5 steps to get the color that I want. So I'm definitely getting that one.
Yeah, this widget will definitely.
Yeah.
I'll send them all over to you so you can share them with your listeners.
Fantastic. Oh, thank you very much. It's been really fascinating, especially, seeing as we all started on magazines where people's careers evolve and seeing you go into agency life is really, it's so interesting to hear how, that all works because it's different to how we work, definitely.
It's great.
Well, thank you both so much for having me. It's been wonderful to catch up, and you've asked some really thought-provoking questions.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay, and that brings us to the end of our show this week, but thanks to everyone who's listening and sharing us on social media, and you'll find the show notes and how to connect with Vanessa and all the cute things. And we'll see everyone again next week.
We will. Thanks again, Vanessa. Thanks. Everybody. Bye.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.